Hi there, welcome to another edition of the podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. His name is Pranav Kelker, and he was a master's student at the University of Wrocław. Right now he's working there, and welcome Pranav to the podcast. Right,
Hey,
amazing. So,
nice to be here.
could you tell us a little bit about your experience in 2 years, like more academically and professionally?
Okay, academics wise, it was great. I joined the University of Wrocław like what 2021, in the Masters of Data Science, and so it was all for those who might not be familiar. It's all related to like machine learning, AI, and sort of that sort of stuff. That's like my specialty. Chat GPT in some sense. Um, I had a great time academically. Uh, Not to go into too much detail, but it was of course, it's very different from back home, from back in India, which I did my undergrad in computer science in Bangalore. Um, but this was very different. And professionally, I work as an analyst.
Got it.
So,
That's pretty cool. I just have a short question for now. Like in your undergrad, were you required to do a thesis, or what was the?
no. Yeah, we had to do like a final project thing, like kind of like a capstone project, they called it. It was for, yeah, it's just like a project at the end, and we had to spend like 6 months making something as a group. But here, yeah, we have to do a thesis. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll get back to that in a moment. Or actually,
Hmm.
it's a great time to. So, what? Uh, how would you characterize the differences in your experience at Bangalore? Was it during your undergrad
Yeah,
and
yeah.
right now? So, what's the key differences that you have noticed, or how is it? Um,
Um, okay, one of the biggest differences was, of course, there's way more people in India. There's way more people in the entire batch, but like for instance, in my Masters of Data Science program, there was 14 people at the beginning. So and compare that to like my Bachelor of Computer Science, I feel like that was 600 or so. It's a stark difference, yeah.
Wow, it's really messy. And
Yeah.
how was the decision to study one data sciences and two to choose Wrocław in the whole process or the University of Wrocław?
Okay, so data science was mainly sort of something that like I was a bit clueless in terms of what I wanted to do for undergrad, and that was sort of like pushed by my parents a little bit. Like I was good at computer science in like school and everything. While doing computer science, I thought like machine learning and everything was really cool because it's like these mathematical algorithms that can make predictions and everything, which is bizarre. Um, that's sort of what got me interested. And further, like more than machine learning in itself, it's this sort of segment of natural language processing, which is why I said like ChatGPT and stuff like that. Um, that's of way more interest to me because language is like it's so something that you would think, yeah, how can I put math in languages and make it work? And that's like learning about all these algorithms was really cool. So I thought, okay, that's something I wanted to pursue. Um, with University of Wrocław, it's like a funny story. Like my dad came across this University of Wrocław in I think like a newspaper or something he was reading. He said there's some students who are like building something cool there or something, and then he said maybe you should check it out since you're applying for masters, and I did, and like I liked it because there was a lot of nice faculty here, like Professor Jan Chorowski, who's unfortunately I don't think he's a part of the uni anymore. He's started his own startup, but he's really like really I think influential in the field. My thesis supervisor, who worked closely with him, incredibly smart, Pavel Rychlikoski. Um, and so like looking at these faculties and like their courses offered and everything, I thought, okay, this is quite good. But the funny part is when I came here, I settled down everything. Like 20 days later, my dad said he found the article, and turns out it wasn't the University of Wrocław, but it was Politechnika of Wrocław. Which is, yeah, it ended up being better though, because if it was Polytechnica, like if he told me that, then like they didn't have a data science program, so I would have just neglected that. And I haven't checked, but they didn't have people like, say, Jan Korowski and Paweł Ryklikowski. So
Yeah, they're more technical, they're more engineering focused, but this course in
Mhm.
itself was very special as far as I remember. Um,
Yeah,
as far as I recall, you had no tuition fee for the 2 years, right?
yeah. I don't. My studies are free, but they've changed that now. But I don't think it's like a massive amount.
Right. So, what
I'm
was
not sure what it
the
is, but
rationale? Like,
Mhm.
why did this switch happen? Like, something being offered for free? Okay, actually, like, since it was free, I imagine that there was a lot of competition. So, how was the
Yeah.
process like?
So they did tell us like the statistics, which was quite nice actually. They said there were, I think, I'm not sure. There's two numbers coming into my head and I don't remember. I think there was either 250 or 400, which is big difference, I know. But let's say like 300 to 400 students who like applied for the program internationally. Um, okay, so to like take a step back, in the 14 students, there are 10 sort of seats for Polish students and 5 for international. In my case, they took only 4 international because I think they didn't find a good fifth candidate out of 400, 300 to 401. Um, so initially, it was just like a screening of our CV and everything. Then there was like a sort of test or exam, which is like they gave us 5 questions and a week to answer. And based on that, I think from the CVs they cut from 3 to 400 to like 100 or so. After the exam, they cut to like 20. And of the 20, I think they picked like 10 for interviews. And these interviews were based on like the test itself. So there was like if I had to frame the question differently, or if I had made this change, like if you had to find this instead of this, what would you do?
I see.
And
Yeah.
so on.
So, if
It's
someone
pretty
else
interesting.
were to do it for you, then you wouldn't pass the interview. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good strategy. And how long was it? Like, when did you apply, if you recall?
I think the process itself was way shorter than like I think any like it does seem like a lot of steps, but I think it was done in a month. I think it was I applied in June/July of 2021, and I think July/August was the interviews and finalization and everything.
Fairly
Yeah.
quick, yeah. A month for all of this
Mhm.
to screen all these many candidates.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
big deal. Like, kudos to the university itself.
Yeah, they're
Um,
really good at that.
right. I
They
have
did really
a
well.
like sort of tricky question for you. Like, why Poland? For computer sciences. Why not like USA or the States or Germany, for example? Like, what was special about
Uh,
the country? Or
um, for me, Poland was someplace, I guess it's like everyone was going to the States. That's something that like I also did apply to a lot of unis in the States. I think I applied to 10 places for masters in total, and out of those 7 were in the States and 3 were here. Like one was in like Switzerland, I think, and one was in, I don't know, I forgot. Maybe 2 were in Switzerland, something like that. Um, there was no like rationale as such. It was just like okay, the states thing is like yeah, everyone wants to go there, and it is like the heart of tech and everything. It is pretty like the advances that are really significant. Um, I think mostly the thing about Poland was just stumbling upon it as like the thing my dad said, but I do like the fact that I do have to sort of I think the intermingling with other cultures and everything is way more here because I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of Indians here, but at the same time, there would be a much more substantial number in like Germany, France, and
I
stuff.
would say it's a 5% subset of the number of Indians, let's say in UK or USA, because there is a lot,
Yeah, yeah,
but that
yeah.
lot is relatively small if you look at international waters. So for me
Oh,
personally,
yeah,
I
definitely.
consider Poland as like a
Mhm.
sort of a golden nugget place, which is hidden. So you need to stumble across it, which is one of the reasons
Yeah,
I started this podcast because it's not really on the map when individuals are considering higher studies, and the return that you get on the investment, both financially, culturally, and personality wise, it's quite high. It's very rewarding.
very
um,
significant.
right.
Yeah.
So like, why do you think that Poland is not on the map, or you don't think so, like?
Hmm. I don't know. I think it's like these, when you think of Europe, it's mostly like I think it's mainly because of like tourism and big names. Like if you think of Europe, you think of like France because of like Paris. A lot of people wouldn't even know many other cities apart from Paris and France, or like you'd think of Germany because of like the German sort of, I guess, everything like Berlin, Munich, and this that, and maybe Spain, Scandinavia, but like countries like say Poland, Hungary, Czechia, and stuff, they get like sort of they're sort of in the sidelines in that sense.
I see. Yeah. I mean,
So.
for me personally, like I was in touch with Poland because I used to like to play a lot of games, and I was
Mhm.
especially a big fan of the Witcher series. I had
The
never read
Witcher,
the
right?
books, but the games itself, and the parent company of that game, the CD
Hmm.
Projekt Red, is based out of Poland. That was my
Yeah.
first, like, that was the first time I actually heard Poland. The second time was
Hmm.
about the wars that happened in the world. That okay, aggression
Yeah.
from both neighbors and so on. But
Hmm.
maybe we take a step back. So earlier we were talking about the fact that when you joined the course of data sciences in 2021, it was free of cost. Of course, there was a long
Hmm.
process of selection. Right now, they have made it. I think. How much is it now, and why is the
I'm not
reason?
sure.
All right, so it's
Oh, I like the payment. I'm not sure, but I think the main reason is that so if you pay for something, you do have this inherent like feeling of okay, now I have to perform well, right? I think that might be the reason because when I joined, for example, I said that we started off with 14. That's because the I think in the first month or two students sort of quit, international students, because it was just quite rigorous, I think, and so they weren't able to handle it, and so it is an investment from the university and like resources to like bring them here and this and that. So I guess to avoid situations like that, it's
right. In Hindi,
they
we
asked for
say "Ghar
payments.
ki murgi dal barabar," yeah, something like that. Like
Yeah,
if you pay for
I guess.
something, you have a emotional attachment to it, or at least an attachment to it.
Yeah,
If you find something
yeah.
for
You
free, you're like,
feel the obligation to like do it.
right, right, right. So it's as far as I remember, I don't know the exact sum of money as well, but it's something nominal that you have to pay to put this sort of contractual and semi-financial obligation. And I think it's a good step. Are you in touch with the current people who have started the course as well, or have you heard?
No, not really. No, it's hard to be in touch with the students in the masters because everyone, like, in the whole data science course, it's three core courses that everyone has to do, and apart from that, there's like so many others that you can that are like electives. So yeah, so everyone's doing their own thing. So for instance, like you don't have courses that are just master students. I had so many courses with like other students in like the math institute or the computer science institute with like bachelor students, master students, and
That's very interesting. Were you also having classes with
Mhm.
students who were studying in Polish, for instance? Or
No, but I could do that. But like, I mean, students who are studying in Polish, yeah, they chose some courses that were in English. So I had contacts with them. Yeah.
right, because it's very interesting. Like recently, I had a guest. He was also in the same 2021-23 master's program, and he was
Mhm.
studying in Polish. A very interesting individual. He was raised
Hmm.
in just south of Wrocław, and he is basically Polish. His parents emigrated in
Okay.
the late 80s. And he told me that he had the choice to be able to write his thesis in English or Polish. And also, he could choose courses. Like, even though the main language of instruction was Polish, he was able to, take on English courses or write thesis in English. So I think this is very
Yeah.
inviting of the university. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
it doesn't work the other way around because it's
Yeah.
hard to learn the language. The
Of
courses
course.
are in
Yeah.
Polish, right? So, like, how was your experience with the language itself and like some cultural like? Let's take a step back to when you first came here. Like, what was some challenges that you
Mhm.
encountered?
Um, I think the language. Okay, the challenges. I think in general, it's the feeling of moving to a completely different. Like I've lived abroad, like outside of India before, and but the thing is, it was always in Asia, for instance, where Asian cultures are there is like quite a lot of difference in like everything in like what you see and stuff. So when I came to Europe for the first time, it was a bit like, whoa, what is happening? For the first few days, it was a bit of a shock to see, like, for instance, like self-service, like kiosks and supermarkets and stuff. I was a bit like weirded out. How do they trust people so much? Um, yeah. Uh, Other than that, I think everyone was in Poland. I think it's like especially the case that everyone was really friendly. That's one like major difference I had with at least the uni that for instance in India it's not like people are really against you. It's just like they have this sort of indifference. So if you ask them for help, they'll give you like the bare minimum and it's done. But here they were all like I clearly remember this one time where we had to do some exercises and uh, it was I had troubles understanding something. So like I asked someone in class, and like two or three of them were like, this was before the teacher entered. So like two or three of them were like, oh my God, okay, wait, let me show you. And they went to the board and like showed their solutions, different ways of solving it. And sometimes they said like, oh, this function has this property just because it's this kind of function. And I was like, okay, I'll just remember that. And they're like, no, 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 we can explain it to you why it has that property. And they were like really going into detail, like just trying to make me understand, which was really nice. It's something I wasn't used to.
I really love it. I can go back and share a similar memory. Like, I remember being in the eighth grade. Like, this is why I also was really interested in mathematics, and it started somewhere around that point. Like, so far in seventh grade, we had learned like how to solve the quadratic equation with completing the square or any other method. Also, we
Mhm.
were told to remember like minus b plus minus root over b squared. That like to
Yeah, yeah.
determine it. In eighth grade we had a teacher, and like I he was a new teacher, so I was like, okay, let's see what he knows. And I was also like sort of
Mhm.
mischievous, so he told us that this is the quadratic formula and that we have to remember it. And I was like, yes, but why is it such a weird formula? I don't understand. And he was so like happy sort of to hear it, which is not the
That's
norm.
nice.
He was so
Yeah,
happy. He
definitely.
actually showed me the proof in classroom, like with everyone, that this is how you do it. And then he explained that Aryabhatta was the first person to come up with this proof and so on. So there was a it was the first time I realized that how much I was looking at the tip of the iceberg and not the properties underneath, which is always helpful. So even when later
Yeah.
I was learning calculus and stuff, like I was always looking at proofs of certain results, and it was very beneficial in the later exams. So I'm really happy to
Oh yeah,
hear that
definitely.
you had a similar like experience of teachers going more. Um,
Oh no, these were students even. Yeah, yeah. These are my classmates who were ready to just be like, okay, yeah, here we go. Like I'm gonna show you these proofs and I'm gonna show you like how this works. Which was even more like teachers also, yeah, they're like incredibly helpful, very, very understanding. So if my assignment's a little late, I say like, hey, can I just submit it like 2 days later? If you don't do it too much, if there's like reasons, they're like, okay, cool. Um, if they ask for progress reports on a project, like if you say sometimes, because we are all humans, we all like, it's not like everyone can churn out the best work every like day in, day out. So for weekly progress reports for some projects, they're like, okay, if I say I didn't do much this week, they're like, okay, cool, no worries. Next week, just catch up or do something.
right, right.
It
And
was
was
really nice.
there any communication issue between the students, the 10 students who were Polish? Like the question is more about how was their
Mhm.
English? Like, was there a problem there, or was it easy to understand?
Oh no, they were really used to like they were speaking. I think that's a thing I've been noticing recently. That like a lot of Polish people say that English is not good, but it is really really good. Like way better than they think. I think. Um, so yeah, there was no issues, and they're all, as I said about the classroom situation, where they're really on the first day itself when they saw us, like the international students during orientation. Right after they offered to like take us around the city, have a beer, sit down, chill, stuff like that. Yeah,
Very warm and loving, which also goes against the stereotype,
very.
by the way, that Poland is closed and they don't speak
Exactly.
English. And I don't understand where the stereotypes like comes from. Like it's very uh, right. But we will like. How was your experience like? But outside, let's say going to shops or let's say ordering beers and stuff like. Um,
It was a little like strange at first. But then like I got used to it. Not strange, I guess, because it is very different. So it, like ordering and buying stuff, it's pretty much the same. I was just, I guess, I was more scared of thinking I'm doing something wrong. Um, but like there was nothing, I guess, that was inherently like difficult, except like for instance in grocery stores, I don't think there are many signs and stuff of like what things are in English.
right. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
challenge to
but I
navigate.
guess I think it's a European thing though. I don't think there are many stores that actually have that.
Right, right. It's also a matter of, I would say, pride and connected with nationalism. Like, why do we need two languages? Like, you're in Poland, you're in Germany,
Exactly.
you're in France, you speak French, German, and Polish, like, respectively and
Mhm.
respectfully. So there's, and also like in a grocery store, you go and you look, like a
Yeah,
tomato is.
exactly.
It would be a little bit hard to navigate, especially in bigger stores. But yeah. And how's your
Mhm.
Polish after 2 years of learning?
Oh, I would say it was the progress was great in the first year because I had classes like obligatory Polish courses in the uni. Loved it. Like that experience was incredible. Um, and so it was sort of increasing, but then like in a bit like it since it's been a year since I've actively learned it, I think it's like going down slowly or it's like stagnating. But yeah, I'd say it's at a pretty decent level. I can understand, I can talk a
And was
little.
it easy or hard to adjust to the new language and new climate?
I think for me, in terms of language, it was a bit easy, but I believe I have that affinity towards languages where it's easier for me to just pick up a language because I know there are like people who I've seen who've been here for maybe even longer who just don't know the language or
Yeah,
so.
actually, that's a very interesting point because I think the core of that is in networking, or is in how
Mhm.
open you are as an individual, as opposed to the culture itself. Um, so, like, what what are some tips or suggestions you have for anyone who is new to Poland or has been living there to sort of assimilate in the society or create a network?
Mm, yeah, I think it's that, like, just be more open. Everyone's incredibly nice, even though it might not seem like it, or you might have this sort of uh, prejudiced notion of like, okay, maybe they're not. Because I think one thing that's maybe similar to big cities in India, but like dissimilar from what I've heard in the States, for instance, is that like nobody cares what you're doing. Like you're out on the street, like something happens, no, like nobody really is like, everyone's in their own lane, which makes sense. It's pretty normal. And so you would think everyone's a little like distant or something, but no, they're all really warm, really nice. Everyone's incredibly helpful if you talk to them. Um, so yeah, that's the thing. Like, if it might take a while to like open up to someone, or like to get someone, or like to start talking to someone. But if you do it through like friends or through uni or your work colleagues, they're really nice.
So that's a very interesting point. Like right now, I'm thinking from the perspective of someone who is new. Let's
Hmm.
say they're in the first week. So what should they do at the University of Wrocław? Like, are there any administrative opportunities available for them to sort of mingle, integrate student unions or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this?
Yeah, there's the orientation day on the sort of before the semester starts. That's a really good way of meeting people. There's also student organizations, one that both of us were part of, the International Student Network, um, hosting a lot of events, like so many things, like hikes or picnics, or something I started last semester was like a book club. So stuff like that, and it's a really, really nice way of like meeting people
Right.
and talking to them.
So the main idea is to be more open to check out the social media of the university, to check out dormitory groups and such. And once you have taken a step outside of your own country, it's a good idea to
Mhm.
take another step, elsewhere instead of, let's say,
Yeah,
dormitory house or like a apartment or flat.
yeah. I guess like mentally outside your own country, then after physically. Yeah.
Because very often it happens. I have met colleagues who would stay in their own sort of communities, and the only
Hmm.
criticism I have for that is, like, if you were, let's say, if you're from Egypt and if you want to spend time with Egyptians while you're in Poland, in Wrocław, Warsaw, then it's not the wisest move, because you could have stayed back. That applies
Yeah.
the same way to Indians and any other like community center. So yeah, take a step out, try to learn the language, which is
Hmm.
not very crucial. Like, so Pranav, could you tell us, like, is it possible to survive without Polish, or were you learning Polish before you came here?
Definitely. Definitely. It's pretty. I wasn't learning Polish before I came here, but then, like, I think it's because I know, as I said, I know people who've been here longer who barely know the language. It's really everyone's. I think it's a bit. I would even dare to say it's a bit more English friendly than you would think Germany or France. But no, I think from my experiences, I think Poland is way
Right,
better.
right, all right. And let's talk about the depth of the, like, just English as well. So when it comes to the thesis, it's a deep, chaotic, often topic.
Mhm.
So how was it for you to manage that, and what was the thesis about?
My thesis is about getting the sort of semantics of words, so basically meanings of words from unlabeled recordings. So, for instance, if you imagine you were given a bunch of text in a different language without any like this word means this word means this, and you're just given just that text. There are computer like machine learning algorithms that can figure out word meanings just through that text, which is pretty cool. But it's really hard to do that from speech. So if you give them a bunch of recordings instead of text. And so my thesis was sort of working towards that.
Wow. Could you shed some light on like how the algorithm would manage this? Let's say just for text, for example.
In text, it would see like the words that are in the surrounding of a certain word, and like it would try to figure out, okay, this word appears like maybe the word like fruit words appear in similar contexts, and around similar words, so maybe they are similar. Like the word like orange and juice appears together sometimes, and maybe it has some similarity, and like through stuff like that, it sort of builds up this, yeah.
And how does that work for text? For audio, for example, like does it translate into
Oh,
text or?
it doesn't. That's the part of my thesis that I was like trying to use these text algorithms and to see where they fail in speech, because in speech it's really hard to do because you have these issues of noise, you have these issues of like if like two speakers write something, it's the same, it's going to be the same text, but their voices are different, their accents are different. It's a whole bunch of problems.
Right.
So
Unnecessary variables, would that be the right way to put it? Or
uh yeah, kind of, yeah, more variables to take care of. It was a failure in terms of we weren't able to build like an algorithm that did this. But I guess that's a success because we tried like methods of when I say we, it's me and my supervisor. We tried methods of like using these text methods that are already so good and trying to apply them to speech. So yeah, that didn't work, which was a good observation because we tried them like adding sort of simulating problems of speech in text. So for instance, if since in text also another issue is like you don't have any separation between words or any characters or something. You don't have like discrete sort of units. So we took a bunch of text and just squished it all together, all lowercase, no spaces, no punctuation, nothing, and then tried running the same text algorithms, but they worked a little lesser. So similarly, we added on the problems of speech and saw where the performance was the worst, and turns out due to noise mostly, and yeah.
and which language you were primarily, I imagine, doing this in English, right? For English
Mhm.
audio, okay, right.
Yeah, because the data is easily available. So
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so what about the job security post your thesis? Like, what does the market look like? Was it easy, hard to get a job?
I think it was pretty hard because I mean you'd think like data science, it's like I remember reading an article where it was said that it's like one of the sexiest jobs of the 21st century. I disagree. Um, but it's hard to find jobs. It's really hard to find jobs. It's like I think I applied to maybe over 100 jobs or 150 because I was just sitting for an hour, 2 hours every day, just mass applying to different things I found on LinkedIn. Some things that were like very different from what I was actually doing. Um, so it was a bit hard, but I don't think it's the norm. It's the financial situation everywhere. Like this was the time where you might have heard like so many all those layoffs were happening at Google and this that. So
Elon, like the Elon ones or the later
yeah,
ones? Like,
the initial ones even like this was December last year, or like September to December last year.
right. Okay, I remember now. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a hard time for the market itself.
exactly.
But let's say in terms of competition, were you also applying for jobs after your undergrad?
No, because in undergrad, like part of the final thing was, it was either I do a whole big massive project or I do a smaller one and do an internship. And that's the option I chose. So I had an internship through a friend of mine, and I just ended up working full time with them
I
after
see.
my
All right.
studies
Okay. Okay.
because it was great.
Right. Because I think that the number of professionals working in a specific field, as you said, like 600 in your batch versus 14, 15 here at a single university,
Mhm.
the competition is it's sort of lower. Uh, yeah, that's very. I didn't think it would have been so hard to find a job, but
Yeah, it
it
is
is the
just the
market
market.
condition, right?
And I think also another issue with being a data scientist is like it's hard to start your career in data science because there aren't many companies who are willing to give interns or juniors access to all this data that they have, right? Because it's potentially very sensitive. So it's hard to get in this field.
Hmm. Okay. And what is your current work? What does it look like?
So I'm an analyst, mainly for like credit risk models and validation and so on.
Okay.
So,
So you also work with machine learning algorithms, or
um, occasionally, but not like neural networks and stuff, because credit risk is like it's a field that like happened because of this like big recession thingy in 2008 and stuff, like the big financial crisis, and so it's heavily regulated. So like stuff like neural networks and stuff we cannot use because they're not easily explainable, let's say. Um, so, but yeah, basic machine learning occasionally, yeah.
right? I see. And is it rewarding? Let's say, is it rewarding for you on your fronts?
Hmm. I think so. It's more rewarding than I thought it would be because I'm not into like financial stuff much. But as I said, I'm more into like say research but I am more into research and stuff, but more like machine learning and stuff. So I think it's definitely more rewarding than I thought.
And
Yeah.
are you considering like some PhD or another master's or something like this?
Yeah, I am considering doing a PhD because I that it's sort of a new development and it's through my thesis actually because a thesis is a big work of research where you have to look at all these new things, read all these research papers, create something new, do research basically. And it's something I love doing. And I realized that as I was doing it because there weren't many chances of doing research in undergrad either, since there were so many students. I couldn't, like, I tried actually, but I couldn't just walk up to a professor and be like, hey, I want to do some research, do you have any projects? Because they would all be like, yeah, I have like 50 other students, dude, chill. So yeah. So there weren't many options of doing that in undergrad. um During masters, of course, since they were lesser and like since a thesis is mandatory, I you do have this sort of foray into research, and it turned out to be really useful. So yeah, been looking for PhDs.
So, any specific memories that you have that you made in Poland, something that you found interesting?
Oh, there's so many, but it's really hard to pick from. I thought like I guess it's a feeling of as you're growing up, you realize, or like as you're experiencing new things, you realize, oh my God, there's so many new things I'm doing and everything. There's been a lot. One thing I really enjoyed doing is since this is, I guess, like a tip you'll realize eventually when you come, trains here are 50% off for students. So what I used to do is like go to the train station at like 6:30 a.m. and just pick a random
Technical error. Sorry,
train
Pranav, you
station.
were talking about trains.
Yeah, yeah. So trains are 50% off in for students in Poland. So what I used to do is like go to the train station early in the morning at 6:30 ish, with some friends, whoever was interested, and just take like spin the wheel and just take a random train to wherever that was leaving in the next hour. And that gave me a lot of nice opportunities. One of the things I really liked seeing was this really small town called Gniezno, which foreigners would not know about for sure. It's not one of the bigger cities like Krakow and Gdańsk and Warsaw and stuff, but like Gniezno is the first capital of Poland. It's where like for instance, I think it's where like Christianity came into Poland or like set its roots there and stuff. So that was really interesting to see. because also it was not something very talked about by people.
Right.
So
There's a lot
it
of
was quite nice.
very interesting aspects. I remember I heard about this forest with the crooked
Yeah.
trunks. So I went there
Yeah, I
specifically.
saw the YouTube short that you had posted
Yeah.
about it.
It was pretty cool. I mean, the idea of going there is pretty cool. In itself, it's like a closed space and there's not too many trees.
Hmm.
But the way you go there is very beautiful. The town you go through is very beautiful. And as you mentioned, like Poland is, at the risk of sounding repetitive, very beautiful. All the
It's
small
incredible.
towns, they should be definitely visited once or twice. Krakow, Auschwitz, yes, but all the smaller areas around Wrocław as well. The landscape is very flat, so it's very beautiful while you're on a train or on the road and such. So highly recommend to all the students, like, just catch a train. It's 50% off. Take your student ID with you, and yeah, just have fun. So, any
Yeah.
suggestions, Pranav, to the new students who will be studying, let's say, this October? They would be starting their semester soon.
Yeah, yeah. I would say I think it's like something we talked about. Even I think we spoke about this in our first meeting also, and of course throughout this conversation that like try to be open to things. Like there's this book I was reading from a Polish author, Ryszard Kapuscinski. He's like a journalist and a traveler. Incredible writing. He wrote like a set of books. One was about his travel. One or like a part of the book I read was about his travel in China, and he spoke about like the Great Wall of China, right? Like it's a wonder, it's a marvelous thing, but at the same time, it's like it creates this feeling that in reality that doesn't exist, like this border of or this feeling of us and them, and like this it closes you off. So I guess if you're coming, just try to be open to so many new things, and like that itself will open up and create so many new experiences and opportunities. Like if you think of the language as an opportunity to learn a new language or to interact with people, there's so many people with such cool stories. There's a lot of if you think like, okay, I'm just gonna stay in my area, stay in my home, there's so many like small places that you wouldn't have thought about or heard of, or that aren't very touristy, but I guess in a good way, because they're like hidden gems of the cities and stuff, so that you'd end up missing out on, or even the cuisine and
Right.
yeah.
Um, that's a good point, and I just realized that there is a hidden aspect of staying in the comfort zone, especially when you travel to a new country. So the question would be, like, have you had any negative experiences in terms of
Mm.
anything? I would even say, like, something like, is there something like racism or something
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
around that?
Um, I have been fortunate enough to not have any of that. But I know like friends, for instance, who have had that. I think one was even at the uni, for instance. I think this person was like, I think it was just like not very out loud racism. It was just something like I think he got like lesser grades or something. But then at the uni, we have a person or like an entire office for this sort of stuff who you can write to, and they're really nice about. But apart from that, nothing really. I think there was one instance. I guess this is even like playful in some sense. So it was me walking around town with my friend from Indonesia, and this like guy in a car. He just zooms past and he says something. I think it was meant to be like a mockery of an Asian language, but then he yelled it at us and he laughed, and so we also laughed. So we're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
incidences are very, um, you know, but we should also, not that I am supporting racists. However, I would like to point out that uh, Poland has had a history of very bad neighbors. So the in the social science, social idea of the us versus them, the us in them is very strong. And
Mhm.
perhaps it's a symptom of this us being very strong that comes out occasionally. However, it is not something that should stop me from exploring, because most of the negative experiences that I have heard of, or fortunately again not experienced, are the ones which are surrounding like very specific parts of the town with very specific people. Very often they're football fans with the bald heads, late at night, around clubs. So there is an element of calculated risk involved when deciding where to go. For example, as Pranav said earlier, like you would catch a train in the morning and not late in the night. So that's
Definitely.
a conscious
Yeah.
choice, right?
Yeah, it's like people who would do these sorts of things are people who you would generally just avoid. So if you see some drunk person screaming on the streets, running around, you would avoid that person. So in a similar way, if you avoid these sort of people, like times and everything, I think
Mhm.
it's pretty okay.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And perhaps we should close on a more positive note.
Hmm.
So, can you tell me about like some of the friends that you have made or some nice experiences? Perhaps you have visited a Christmas during the time. Examples of
Yeah, yeah.
people being very open as opposed to.
Oh, yes, hell yes. So I can talk about this for way, like probably as long as we've spoken so far. I can talk twice that long. I met one of my best friends here, Alexandra. You know her. Um, Incredibly nice. She's from Poland, and the first we met, I think. So I reached Poland in the end of September 2021. Um, I think sometime early October we met, and for Christmas she invited me. Like we got really close really fast, and so for Christmas she invited me to her house, and it was so nice and so welcoming. Her parents are not like really, they didn't speak English a lot, but they were so like enthusiastic to like try and communicate. Not even just her parents, her like entire family, like her grandparents, her like sisters. It was great, and like they were trying to get me like to see some of the authentic like Polish things, like to try out like Polish dishes and like see what's around. And it was a tiny, tiny town, so just to see, explore. And I think like I was lucky to have that, but I do think that I'm not sure about this, but I think the university did something that like they asked some professors or like staff in the university if they're ready, if they want, they can host international students for Christmas sometimes. Um,
It happens,
yeah.
but on very rare occasions, especially with like inter exchange students, like the ones who come on Erasmus. But then again, we have to keep in mind that there's a 1 is to 15, 1 is to 20 ratio of professors to students.
Of course, of
So
course.
that's right. But how did you meet Alexandra?
Oh, it was through the ISN, as I said, like the International Student Network. She was the one who started the ISN, and she was like the president, and they had like a jazz night event where there was like a jazz club thing, or like a bar which had like live jazz playing, and so huh? No, 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 this wasn't Vertigo. It was Liverpool. Yeah, yeah. And I that yeah, I got to know about it through the ISN. Thought like, okay, I have some free time, might as well. And yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. So as we turn off close towards the hour, is there any final suggestions, thoughts, criticism, anything you'd like to add? Anything on your mind that you want to
Oh,
share?
I think to close, I would say if you want to come here, just get ready to have an incredible time. It's gonna be so fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So no more words than that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll check in with you soon. Wow, that was a lot, right? So if you enjoyed that, do consider subscribing to the channel. There will be more podcasts coming in the coming weeks. And yeah, if you're already in Poland or about to start your bachelor's, master's, PhD this October, I wish you the best.